Thank you. We have a few more speakers to get through, so I appreciate your patience. I'd now like to welcome the Honourable Greg Donnelley, who's a member of the Legislative Council. Mr Donnelley has met with the ACM on several occasions and has attended many of our rallies. Mr Donnelley has, on this issue, written many letters to the Honourable Julia Gillard over the years, and he's been a great advocate on the Coptic issue. So we thank Mr Donnelley for coming out here again in support and solidarity. Please make Mr Donnelley feel welcome.
Thank you, Monica, and thank you for the work today of emceeing this very important function. Can I acknowledge the presence this afternoon of the two Bishop Daniels, other leaders of Coptic and Middle Eastern and North African denominations, Holy Fathers, fellow MPs from the state and the Commonwealth Parliament, along with council representatives, distinguished guests, the Coptic community, which is obviously very well represented here today, brothers and sisters. It's with a heavy heart that I come here again today to speak to you. And as I was driving in here today from Hornsby, I was thinking that this is a tragedy that on a wonderful day like this, in a free and prosperous country like Australia, a large, important community has to come together and mourn what is the terrible treatment being experienced week in, week out, month in, month out, year in, year out in another part of the world. And why is this happening? And why is this happening? We want for the Coptics of Egypt what we have in Australia, what we expect, what we take for granted but we know is something that our brothers and sisters, our family, our friends in Egypt should be able to enjoy and have. They should be able to walk down the street. They should be able to freely assemble. They should be able to come together and pray and celebrate their faith. And yet that does not happen. In fact, it cannot happen because of the way in which they're being persecuted right now. We're here specifically mourning some attack that took place just 7 days ago, where we had a number of people, in fact counted in the thousands, mourning at St Mark's, your wonderful cathedral in Cairo. And those people were mourning what was in effect the murder, the killing of innocent people only the day before. And whilst they were leaving that church after mourning, they were subject to a brutal attack leading to what we understand were more deaths and injury of, once again, innocent people. And it is reprehensible to consider that while this happened, and not just the attacks themselves which took place north of Cairo last Saturday week, but at the attack of the cathedral itself, we understand that there were police and security services who stood there and did nothing while this all happened. They stood there and did not act. And not only that, it is understood that some of them may have been directly implicated in the violence against those innocent people. And what a terrible thing that is. These people who hold positions of authority, the security officers, the police, people that we in this country take for granted, protect us and protect us without question, were not only directly implicated, but it seems involved in directly this terrible violence. But I think we should remember that tragically, while this particular incident gained obviously the attention of the media, and which has brought us together today to mourn those deaths and reflect on what's happened. What about all those other incidents and matters that go day in, day out unreported because there are individuals who are too afraid to speak up and talk because they know that if they did so, they would come under further persecution. So we must remember this is something which is affecting a whole community, the Coptic community. And whilst tragically some of these matters receive the attention of the public at large and the international community, we must never forget that it is the whole community which is suffering and suffering deeply. I call on too our federal government to continue to speak out openly and firmly and in a very determined way to actually condemn, and use the word condemn, the actions of these attacks by individuals who hope that they won't be noticed and hope that they won't be identified, but they are known for who they are. They are essentially acting as thugs. They are essentially acting as individuals who are taking the law into their own hands, and that's just not acceptable. Can I conclude, because I know there's a couple of other speakers, by just making particular acknowledgement to the ACM, but particularly the young people involved in ACM. And in doing that, can I specifically acknowledge Peter Tadros, Sarah Ramsey, Monica Mahale, our MC, and Madat Attila, who have all been wonderful in showing leadership, not just to the young, but the whole Coptic community in this state and beyond the borders of this state. And you are very fortunate to have such leaders who are helping to bring to the understanding of the great people of Australia all that the Cops want in Egypt is what we enjoy and what we take for granted. And can I just conclude by acknowledging, and I was reading this before coming here this afternoon, that in those immediate years after St Mark established your church in 64 AD, that some of the most fierce persecution by Roman emperors of the Coptics took place in the 2nd century AD. And it just has us reflect, doesn't it, that the Coptics have been experiencing persecution and ill treatment over a long period of time, and you are continuing to experience that. And one day, praise God, you will be beyond that and will be able to look back at these as very trying times. But as long as you continue to experiencing the persecution and the ill treatment, we will stand by you, we will show solidarity, and we will not give up until the Copts of Egypt have the freedom, the justice and the respect they deserve. Thank you very much.